SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Have you been seriously injured? Mama Justice is here for you. Our medical team partners with top-notch doctors, surgeons, therapists, and urologists, ensuring a comprehensive recovery journey. If you've been injured, call Mama Justice today. We're here for you.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Middays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. Middays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday Super Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, on location today at the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Build Mississippi event. We've got Rhino safe and sound back at the Super Talk headquarters today. We'll be guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Hump Day.
Morning there, Rhino. What's up?
Oh, not too terribly much. Just keeping a watchful eye on the weather for northwest Mississippi.
Man, I've been watching that as well and had to battle some rather strong winds just walking from the parking lot to the Trade Mart, looking straight south, of course, on that little walk, and that appears to be the direction from which the wind blows. Pretty dadgum strong. Well, today, according to the President of these United States, it's Liberation Day, big-time tariff day. The President's scheduled to announce his plan of tariffs at 4 p.m. Eastern. That would be 3, of course, our time. And the markets and really economists are trying to guess what this may look like. And it appears, according to the Wall Street Journal, we could see a 20% universal tariff on all imports, a reciprocal plan that would apply different tariff rates depending on the nation and its tariff policies towards the U.S., or a broad tariff under 20% that would apply only to a subset of countries. So we're all guessing where that's going. Could be a combination of all the above. Markets jittery, of course, over this information, though all the indexes are now in the green. They started out quite negative in the pre-market. They're in the green. One thing that folks may be paying attention to is a decline in the 10-year Treasury rate. Why is that important? Of course, because that affects your mortgage rates and any sort of other long-term financing, such as an automobile, etc. So that's coming down. The old funny money, Rhino, seems to be stuck at 85,000, doesn't it? It's just like it's down, it's up, it's down, it's up, and just hanging around 85,000.
Yeah, that seems to be where it feels safe at the moment.
Yeah, so it's staying right there. Haven't looked at the price of crude today, but inventories, it is being reported by the Energy Institute of America that U.S. crude oil inventories climbed 6.2 million barrels. What does that mean to you at the pump? Generally speaking, that means that we've got excess supply and thus prices should come down. OPEC, of course, boosted supply, and oil shipments are rising as a result from the OPEC nations into this country. India has hiked its crude oil imports from the U.S. by 67% in March, which is nothing short of astonishing. So right now, though, the price per barrel is $71.29. The price on average, just for comparative purposes, during Joe Biden's final year of 2024, about $76. So we're about $5 a barrel right now below that. Of course, it was trending downward toward the end of his term, and this is just a function of demand and supply. Now, thankfully, the president, upon taking office, did reverse many of those extremely onerous anti-fossil fuels policies enacted by President Biden. Heck, before the deadgum, as we like to say, teleprompters were moved from the Capitol steps on Inauguration Day, he was signing away executive orders basically to make it really difficult in this country to boost the supply of fossil fuels, which we have really not figured out a way to replace at this point. Supplement, augment, displace some? Sure. Totally replace? No. We got a long, long, long way to go to get there, maybe never. And so the president, this president comes in, reverses many of those policies, and expectations are that would incentivize energy companies to go out and explore for more oil, produce more oil. That hasn't been the case as yet, just because, just as we told you, you got excess inventory. So they're not inclined to go out and produce more inventory, driving the price down even further, especially when we're continuing to buy all they can produce at a slightly elevated price over what it would be if they got out and produced more. Big elections yesterday, local elections across the state of Mississippi. Looks like in our capital city, it's State Senator John Horn and incumbent Mayor Antar LaBamba heading for a runoff. Were you a little surprised, Rhino, at the results of that? I got to tell you, I was.
I was surprised at the gap between them. I wasn't that surprised to see Horn in the lead, but yeah, to see him that far out in front and almost clinch it on primary night, that was a bit surprising.
Agree. 11,909 votes for Senator Horn. That's the latest data I have, Rhino, and 4124 for Chokwe Antar LaBamba, and they will head to a runoff, it looks like, in the capital city. I would have to bet at this point. So, doing the math, Rhino, if you look at the next vote getters down the list, Timothy Tim Henderson, Delano Fuentes, Marcus Wallace, I mean, if you took all their votes and shifted those in the runoff to LaBamba, he still doesn't prevail. So he's got a pretty tough road to hoe, wouldn't you think, to overcome the delta, as you pointed out, which was significant. 7,800 votes, looks to me like it was the difference between the two. So he's got a pretty big hill to climb there. Meanwhile, races that the entire country was focused on yesterday, the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, one of the most bizarre things ever, simply because of the amount of money dumped into that race. A Supreme Court election which garnered well over $80 million for a campaign. $80 million. Right, I think if you added up our last gubernatorial election plus our last two U.S. Senate elections, that doesn't come close to half of that amount spent on this particular single Supreme Court race. And there are a lot of different reasons for that, but it turns out liberal Judge Susan Crawford prevailed. Now, some are saying this is an absolute proxy for the Trump performance thus far and Elon Musk and his involvement in the Trump administration. I'm not so sure that I believe that. Not the way that a midterm election is. This is a single race in a single state, and I'll grant it's a quintessential purple, strong swing state. But you know what I think was different here, Rhino, is that the president was not on the ballot. And I think that does account for a lot. In terms of, but the voter turnout was high, 73%, unheard of. I think the greatest turnout in the history of the state, if I'm not mistaken, for a race of that magnitude. So, and of course, when Wisconsin was carried by the president, it was the narrowest state margin of all the states he carried. And so this race has been closely watched to see how these so-called swing state voters, how they've kind of digested the 10 weeks since the president was inaugurated. Meanwhile, in Florida, good news there is that the GOP prevailed and essentially shores up its ever so slight majority in the U.S. House. Of course, one of those districts in the Florida Panhandle, which is a big-time Republican and big-time Trump country. However, it is somewhat notable that the margin that these two Republicans won by was considerably less than the margin the president prevailed in those specific races. But again, I think that's largely because the president was not on the ballot. Turnout was moderate in those races. But the good news there is that the GOP retains those seats, and that is so critical. You know by now that the president's selection to be the UN ambassador, the congresswoman from New York, Elise Stefanik, one of my favorites, by the way, she has stepped down in that role and is going to stay in the House of Representatives. She is desperately needed in that role to shore up the majority there, so it looks like that change is underway. We're coming right back. We're at Bill, Mississippi. Stay with us.
Love isn't always on time. Love isn't always on time. Love isn't always on time.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are live in downtown Jackson, or just off of downtown Jackson, to the east a bit, not too far from the Pearl River. We're at the Mississippi Trade Mart. That's where we are on the Mississippi Fairgrounds. We're here for Build Mississippi Remote. We're pleased to welcome now Brent Bean, the president of Build Mississippi. Hey, Brent, thanks for coming on.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Let me get your volume here. Yep, I'm good. Good to see you. Man, thanks for coming on. I walked in there a minute ago, and those youngsters they're working as busy as bees, as the saying goes, building, huh?
They are going hard and going strong. Some of them got started yesterday afternoon, and we're really excited to be able to give these young people the opportunity to put the skills that they're learning in their programs, put them up to show. We've got the grandstands out there and some audience watching them, and a lot of contractors coming through and set up at the Career Expo. So really giving these young people the opportunity to show what they've been learning the last couple of years in their construction programs.
It seems like they really have a lot of fun doing this too, don't they?
They do. They're enjoying it. It's always good to have a little competition, and whether it's athletics and on the football field, or building sheds out here, or welding fire pits, to compete against somebody that's across town or across the state, go head to head with somebody. Competition brings out the best of all of us, and they really seem to be having a good time out there.
What's the goal, Brent? What are you trying to do?
So our main goal is we want these young people that are in these trade programs across the state to understand the opportunity that's available to them in the state of Mississippi as far as a career. And, for the longest time, our education system was built in a manner that you got to graduate, you got to score high on this test, you got to go to a 4-year university. That's what success looks like.
Yeah.
And that's just not the truth. That is what success looks like for some people, but that's not the only opportunity for everyone that's out there. So, our main goal is to let young people across the state understand you can have a great career in construction, and you can do it right here in Mississippi. You don't have to leave the state. And, one of the things that we tied into it this year that is going on right now, and it seems to be going really great for us, is we have a career expo that's going on in the West Bay down there. So we've got 25 contractors across the state, whether it's GCs like Thrash Construction or road builders and bridges with Key Constructors or Synergy Electric. We've got commercial contractors, Yates, that are down here so that they can firsthand, one, talk to these young people about the opportunities that are available for them in the state, but also recruit them. We have job offers going out. We've got a couple of young people that are down there with these companies today, able to talk to these current students and tell them, hey, last year I was competing in this, and Key Constructors offered me a job on this day, and now I'm still working for them, and this is what my life has turned out for in the direction that's headed. So really we want to celebrate these people that are in this, these students, and let them know, hey, there's a great opportunity. If you like what you're doing, you enjoy building things with your hands, you can have a great career doing that.
I think it's probably fair to say, is it not, Brent, that virtually every company engaged in the construction industry in the state of Mississippi is looking for people, looking for help?
Everybody is looking for help, looking for people that want to show up on time and put in a hard day's work and then turn around and do it again tomorrow. And, that's one of the things that we're trying to instill in these young people as well, that, not just to be able to have the skills to go out and do and build, but, what a day's work is like.
Yeah.
They need to understand that. And, some of these younger generations, they don't know that. They haven't had to do that. Like some of us grew up, you had to go to work or part-time in the summer. So that's something that, we need to instill in them. I tell people all the time, don't judge this generation if they don't know. Nobody may have told them, and that's on us. We need to not only teach them how to cut rafters, but we also need to teach them, what a good day's work is like. But you're right. The contractors across the state need people from laborers to builders to the superintendents and project managers. One of the things that we are always trying to make sure that people are aware of across the state, not just our students, but our teachers and our parents and grandparents. You see in the news, AWS is coming, and the new data center in Meridian, and all of these great things that are coming. Well, somebody has to build that for them.
Yeah.
And, before AWS was ever announced, there were groups of us, Accelerate Mississippi and others, that we went up to Seattle and was meeting with AWS, and they're like, yes, we're going to have 1,000 people employed in these data centers when we have, but this is how many electricians we need. This is how many HVAC technicians we need. This is how many plumbers we need in order to run the infrastructure and to build the building. And, that's something that sometimes may get lost and forgotten in the news is, these manufacturing jobs are coming and they're great and they're going to be great paying jobs, but before they are available, somebody's got to build it. Somebody's got to pave the roads to it, to put the parking lots and build the walls and put the air conditioning unit in there. So, and these are great paying jobs. And one of the things that the commercial construction industry has done such a good job of the last 5 to 10 years is realizing, yes, we have to pay our people better, but also we've got to have competitive benefits. We've got to have insurance and 401k and retirement. And one of the biggest things that our contractors have implemented and realized with some of this younger generation, above all of that, you got to have good PTO and time off available for these people.
Yeah.
They want to come in and work and earn a great living, but they also want to be able to have time away with their family and go on a vacation or go to the beach. And that's something that these commercial contractors have realized and, have stepped their game up to invest in the future workforce.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And of course, the employers, they're fully aware of that as they're all competing for limited talent. They all need them. And so when you've got a tight job market like that, they respond, but with higher pay and greater benefits, and it creates a lot of healthy competition, and the employees or prospective employees, they're the winners in that situation.
Absolutely.
You need to have your skills ready to go.
Yeah, that's a great thing about capitalism, right?
Exactly.
That's why we're fans of it. But, you mentioned how the contractors, may go head-to-head with each other, and that's what makes today so unique and so cool is that we have a Yates Construction and a Thrash Construction and a Code Array right beside each other. That out in the real world and out in the business world, they're competitors, but today they're coming together and supporting each other to support these young people.
Yeah.
And like, hey, we know as GCs that if we're investing in the future workforce, it's going to benefit all of us.
Yeah, and as you said, I remember this distinctly last year, Brent. They were cutting deals on the floor with future employees, were they not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that we had a handful of young people that were offered jobs and said, hey, when you graduate in 5 or 6 weeks, we have a job ready for you. And that's what's so really cool is some of those young people are in here today and they're now wearing, a Key Constructors shirt now because they got a job offer when they were down here competing last year, and now they're working. So really cool to see that go full circle.
On the C Spire text line, which is 601-879-4395, Mike from New Albany says, my son is 21 and went to work in commercial HVAC and has his own crew in charge of work, and he's on his way up in the company. So there you go.
That's awesome, and I'm glad he sent that. So that's coming firsthand, not just from me, but that is something that's available in the construction world that not all industries offer, where you can start at the bottom, and if you have the will and the desire, you can have your own business one day, and now you're hiring people to do the work for. Absolutely. Yeah. Most of the guys in there, you say, I was working for, Atco Electric 30 years ago, and I branched off, and now I have my own company, and I got 50 employees.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Brent, appreciate you coming on. Thanks for having us here today. Always good to see these incredibly industrious youngsters come in here and work with their hands and do such marvelous work. And I think so many of them have very promising careers in front of them because of the good work you guys do.
Well, thank you. Thank you for spotlighting them.
You got it. We're coming right back, folks. The Element Well Studio, once again at the Mississippi Trade Mart on the fairgrounds of the state of Mississippi. Stay with us.
The stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays live from the Mississippi Trade Mart. Build Mississippi. A room full of youngsters here at the Trade Mart, busy working with their hands, building stuff and learning skills that will prepare them for really some great paying jobs and opportunities in the construction industry. And man, do we ever need folks in that industry. Wrote out couple weeks ago to the construction site, the Madison County mega site, where one of the campuses, the hyperscale data center campuses currently under construction by Amazon Web Services. I was just shocked at the sea of vehicles parked around the job site. I mean, it looks like the kind of vehicle volume you'd see for a big sporting event outside a stadium, and learn that many are having to park off-site at a location that requires transport via a bus. That's how many construction workers there are out there, which is really incredible. So that's fantastic, good news. Rhino, I've learned something that you and I are going to have to keep in mind here, and that is that studies are showing that there are some surprising health benefits associated with swearing. That profanity actually comes with a series of physical, physiological, and social perks. So maybe we need to start swearing more, except we got to be careful here on the air, right? We're kind of limited.
Yeah, pretty much any word that is considered faux pas that is also printed in the Bible we can get away with. But other than that, we might get in hot water.
Okay, well, alternatively, there's other action that can be taken that could improve your health, and that's singing. Research now says that singing can strengthen the breathing muscles of the body and calm the nervous system and help with COPD, Parkinson's disease, mood swings, etc. How about that? Little singing. That's what we need to do. So you can sing for those particular ailments, and you can cuss for the others, right? That's how that works.
I'm just going to get AI to write me a song that's entirely curse words.
That's right.
I'll sing it in the shower every morning and have a great day.
Oh, man. I thought that was rather interesting, to say the least. Some recent reports. Speaking of your physical health and even your mental health, what about Cory Booker? He set the record, did he not, for a speech, an uninterrupted speech there on the well of the U.S. Senate. 25 hours without a bathroom break? Incredible.
Well, 25 hours without leaving the floor. I'm fairly certain
that's right.
He had a bag on his leg.
You do? Okay. Well, 25 hours, Cory Booker. Really incredible. There on the floor at the U.S. Senate. And he got it done. He says he's like not as strong as he used to be or something to that effect. Physically, that his endurance is down a little bit. But he set a deadgum record at 25 hours. What did he talk about?
All of nothing while talking about absolutely nothing of worth. So, yeah. Hooray
Exactly.
for your record. Another empty record for the Democrats.
What was the purpose here? Other than attention, you note that all the time.
Ding, ding, ding.
What the heck was he trying to do? Of course, he spent a good bit of time just condemning Trump's policies. The longest Senate speech on record. A veritable marathon. His voice, he may not have one anymore, huh? So, after a day spent on the Senate floor railing against the Trump administration. Now, he surpassed, by the way, the prior record holder, that none other than Senator Strom Thurmond from South Carolina, I believe, right, for the longest Senate speech on record. I said some amazing stamina. He framed it as a call to action. What action? To do what? What the heck's he talking about? Does he know? By the way, Thurmond, 24 hours and 18 minutes, a filibuster of a civil rights bill in 1957. 1957. Unbelievable. And so Booker has surpassed that. He began his speech at 7 p.m. on Monday. He vowed to speak as long as he's physically able. And in a show of his endurance, he went way past sunset on Tuesday. And all he did, again, was just assail President Trump's cuts to government agencies and crack down on immigration, which I would say to this point has been the most notable accomplishments of the Trump administration. You really can't get through a day these days without paying a little attention to what's going on in Washington with respect to the budget. Not to be outdone by the state of Mississippi's legislature, which still has not passed a budget. It feels like we may be headed to a special session for that purpose. But I am concerned now, Rhino, that there are rumblings around the Capitol there that many Republicans are secretly for higher tax rates. Specifically, they want to allow the top tax rate to return, the top bracket, to return to 39.6. It's 36 and change, I believe, right now. They want it to return to the 39.6 of the Obama-era tax structure, and they're vying for increased corporate income tax rates. This is as the GOP negotiates this one big beautiful reconciliation bill, and they're looking at ways to cut taxes perhaps elsewhere, and in doing so, they're considering increasing the top tax rate plus on individuals plus increasing the corporate tax rate. This would be devastating, in my view, to the economy, in particular the top corporate tax rate. Have they not learned, Rhino, that in taking the corporate tax rate from 38 to 21% as part of the Trump tax cuts, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act enacted in 2017, that revenues have increased from corporate taxes by over a third? It ain't that hard to figure out. We went from 38 to 21, and revenues went up by over a third. And I believe the corporate tax rate should be 0 because we're all paying for it. It's embedded in the cost of what these corporations produce, both products and services. But I think that would be a stimulant to the economy. Corporations would expand. They would hire. Now, the left just thinks all they're going to do is engage in stock buybacks, that's what they would do. They'd use that extra money they would save on taxes to buy more of their stock, to boost it. That's what that does, stock buybacks, to reward shareholders for taking risk and investing in the equity positions of the company. Unbelievable that they're even considering this, even considering increasing corporate taxes. In fact, the president has talked about decreasing the corporate tax rate for goods made in here, companies who make their goods in the United States, to 15%. Not only that, he's talking about immediate expensing. I've heard the president say this, and his cabinet secretaries, both in Commerce and Treasury, say that, yeah, we're looking at a way to include immediate write-off expensing of all capital investment made in factory expansion or new manufacturing facility construction. Imagine that. That would just create a boom in manufacturing, the manufacturing sector in this country. Man, that is fantastic. I would love to see that happen. But yet we have Republicans in Congress on both sides of the Capitol that are talking about increasing corporate income tax rates. It's just mind-boggling. These apparently are on the table as they negotiate the tax reconciliation bill, including Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith. He was on MidDays about a month ago. He said, yeah, everything's on the table. So there's whispering going on around the U.S. Capitol within Republican circles. The chairman said that may sound like boilerplate, but it isn't. What we have heard from any modern GOP Ways and Means chairman, from Kevin Brady to Paul Ryan, Dave Camp, Bill Thomas, going back to the 90s, they would not have considered raising tax rates, but we are this year, which is just crazy in my view. We're coming right back with more at Build Mississippi at the Mississippi Trade Mart. Stay with us.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Little Zeppelin bumping us into this segment here. We're at the Mississippi Trade Mart for Build Mississippi. We relocated the Element Wealth Studio right here in the Trade Mart on the beautiful Mississippi State Fairgrounds. We're pleased to welcome now Stephanie Lee, Executive Director of the Mississippi State Board of Contractors. Stephanie, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Gerard. Glad to be back with you.
All right, so I did a little tour before we came on the show here of the big room in there, and man, those youngsters are busy building stuff, aren't they? It's pretty neat.
They are a great group of kids in there.
Yeah, so how is this important to the contractor industry in the state of Mississippi?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Whenever I'm speaking to colleagues across the country, I love to get to brag on Mississippi and the construction industry. And our leaders in the construction industry realized that we would be facing a skilled workforce shortage years ago, so 20-plus years ago. Realizing that, they petitioned the legislature to add an additional fee onto the licensing fee that is collected by our agency, and then we redistribute those funds back to high schools and community colleges and universities and the Construction Education Foundation for construction education and craft training to support events like this.
Okay. Does the board get involved in the curriculum at all and work with Build Mississippi on how they prepare these kids for jobs in the construction industry?
Yes, we have some board members that are involved with the foundation, and then several board members that serve on advisory panels with the different universities, Southern and Mississippi State, and their building construction science programs.
And is there anything, Stephanie, that the board does to just promote this program? Do you guys go out into the high schools, junior colleges, et cetera, and talk about the opportunities, or do your members do that?
So those funds that we collect that goes to the Construction Education Foundation, they promote it at the local level.
Okay.
And then we also have outreach events where we promote it as well.
I see. And when they all gather at an event like this, you can tell the kids are excited, they're enthusiastic to be here, they like working with each other, and you see a lot of working as a team, which is important as well, because that's what construction is all about. Correct,
absolutely. And we've continued to see year over year increased interest in the skilled trades, so we're very excited about that.
Yeah. What's in the future for the construction industry in the state of Mississippi? What's the health of it look like right now?
Well, like I said, I've been with the agency since 2008, and since then we've seen an increased growth in skilled trades. We're starting to see a lot of that from the counselor levels, advising students, excuse me, that there's a different path other than just a 4-year degree, and they're really considering pursuing those skilled trades.
And to what extent does the board work with our colleges, our high schools, just on creating curriculum and providing opportunities for youngsters, for students in the industry?
So when those funds that we collect each year, we have a committee that reviews what skills are most needed in Mississippi, and then they help use those funds to direct them into those programs to fulfill that need for Mississippi.
Just to make sure that they're prepared for the jobs that are in demand.
Correct, and to make sure we have an adequate workforce moving forward.
Well, it doesn't appear to be any slowdown in construction in Mississippi. We have been blessed to have secured some significant investments from some major companies that are located here in the state of Mississippi, and the build process is long for these major projects, and they need lots of people on the job site involved in building. In fact, my understanding is many they're having to bring in from out of state because we don't have enough within the state.
Well, you're right. And, our workload has increased about 32% over the last 4 years with a lot of these developments that are moving into the state. As far as outside contractors coming into work, we do have multiple agreements with other states that help streamline that process for those contractors to come in and be in compliance in Mississippi.
Well, that brings up another question. Just how plugged in are you guys to your sister organizations in other states, and just keeping up with what's going on across the nation is factoring into your decision-making and governance?
Yeah. We're very plugged in.
Okay.
So I am actually immediate past president of the National Association of State Contractor Licensing Agencies.
Okay.
So I work with my colleagues all across the country, and we're constantly working to streamline processes and increase mobility and portability for construction contractors.
Well, talk about the licensing process, Stephanie. How important is that, and what does that mean to a consumer?
Well, the licensing process is fairly easy process, and then as far as consumers, it helps protect those consumers by ensuring that they demonstrate some minimum level of competency, that they're insured, they're above board, they're paying their taxes, and so forth. So it offers them protection in that sense.
Okay, so it's just a testament to their credibility and integrity. And a consumer can be confident that when they hire folks that have achieved the licensing certification, that they're dealing with reputable people.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stephanie Lee, Executive Director of the Mississippi State Board of Contractors, has been our guest here on Middays. It's top of the hour. That means it's time for Fox News SuperTalk News. Thanks for coming on, Stephanie.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're stepping aside for a break. We're coming right back with the Element Well Studio, relocated to the Mississippi Trademark for Build Mississippi. Stay with us.
Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Mississippi Trademark. We have relocated the Element Well Studio to the Trademark for the Build Mississippi event going on. A bunch of youngsters in the big room here at the Trademark, busy constructing stuff. It's pretty neat to watch them in action, and what they learn is just phenomenal, and preparing themselves with the skills they need to work the jobs in the construction industry that are in high demand, high-paying jobs, good benefits, as you heard Brent Bean, the president of Build Mississippi, discuss in the last hour. But we're here on this
Hump Day.
Can't forget that. And where are we tomorrow, Rhino? We're at Sally K. Winters tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, everybody's going to be there.
In West Point. That's an all-day ordeal. Looking forward to that in Columbus, Mississippi. So Mo says, based on yesterday's results, I'm predicting Senator Horn with 65% of the vote in the runoff. I think that's a reasonable prediction there. Mo's talking about the city of Jackson mayoral race.
One correction about tomorrow is not Columbus, it's West Point.
Oh, West Point, pardon me. I'm thinking about being in the Columbus area. But you're right, in the Golden Triangle up there. Thank you for that. That's where we are every year. I guess we're going to be outside if the weather's good. Appreciate you taking care of that. I think that's the plan. Typically is.
Oh, yeah.
Mo says something to consider. How many of the current Republicans are former Democrats like myself? Talking about those Republicans who are in support of tax cuts. Tax increases. I think what's going on here, Mose, is that they're trying to figure out a way to fit in the other tax proposals that the president made rather continuously on the campaign trail, and that is the exemption of tips, overtime, also Social Security benefits, and the prospect of increasing the cap on the deduction of state and local taxes. And so to make the numbers work, again, as we've discussed many times, so that the parliamentarian says, yeah, those numbers work, and that qualifies the legislation for passage in the Senate with a simple majority. It's just a lot of number manipulation going on and ciphering going on to meet those various criteria, and that is what the parliamentarian is looking at. So what they're saying is, okay, well, we're going to raise taxes on the higher incomes, we're going to raise corporate income taxes, and then they score that and estimate the revenue produced by that. But they say, but over here we're going to cut taxes on tips and overtime, Social Security, as essentially an offset. Revenues down on one side, revenues up on the other, up from increased corporate income taxes. I don't happen to believe that's what would occur if we raise the corporate income tax rate. We've already proven that in lowering it, we got more revenue. So I disagree with that approach totally. And I surely hope that they think more clearly about this possibility of letting the top tax rate return to the Obama-era tax rate of 39.6 and increasing the corporate tax rate. I hope they think about that. I would really like to see right now, I think the best thing for the economy and for America would be a hyper-focus on let's just keep the same tax provisions which we are currently operating under in this country. Let's keep those in place. Let's get that enacted and move forward. And then let's tackle tariffs. And let's talk about other adjustments to the tax code. But it's critical. Businesses across this country, they are anxiously awaiting clarity here. This is what they need. And they want to see the Trump tax cuts renewed, more preferably to be enacted as permanent. That's what they want to see. But rather, we're dealing with lots of other ancillary issues that I think are standing in the way of that. Well, let's see here. What else we got here? Ray in Long Beach. So my question is, how many people were left there in the building to listen to someone rant for 25 plus hours talking about Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey? I'm not sure what prompted that. I don't know that he ever said, other than just, as you like to say right now all the time, calling attention to himself. He certainly got it. It's all over the major media that he set the record for a speech on the Senate floor, 25 plus hours, and really said a lot of nothing in the process. On the C Spire text line, I'm not impressed by the 25 hours of babbling. I'm impressed by 25 hours of not taking care of bodily needs. Seems crazy.
Well, I mean, with a catheter, the only thing you really have to worry about is not eating any solid foods.
That would be a conspiracy theory on your part there.
No, that's
but
what
it
they
is
do
a plausible
when they do those
theory.
long speeches. They get a catheter and a leg bag.
Seems like an awful lot of inconvenience and trouble to insert a catheter, have one inserted, and then remove it. I don't know. But you could be right. Maybe that's all to achieve their little show there, their little grandstanding, their moment of fame. Really incredible. Don't most high schools have a VOTEC program to choose from, as I did in Morton High School? This is on the C Spire text line. That was 1980. We would go to Forest. I'm honestly not sure. I think that is the case. I think there's obviously a lot of focus on career technical education, CTE, and that has been included and incorporated not only in our high schools but our community colleges as well. As far as what we used to call shop back in my old high school days, I'm honestly not sure. And perhaps someone later on in the program can help us out with that. I would think that is the case, though. So
I don't think it's every school. I want to say there's like 400 or 500 different schools across the state that offer some vocational technology class.
That probably sounds right. I think that sounds right. So there's some concerns about how this trade war could reduce American exports, and one that caught my attention is orange juice. We export a whole bunch of orange juice out of this country because we're one of the few countries that has the appropriate environmental settings, the climate, etc., to actually grow orange trees and thus produce orange juice. In 2023, Canada bought $281 million worth of fruit juice from the U.S., and this trade war is expected to have an impact on that. I was a little shocked.
Well, it's being reported that Canada has now stated they will remove all tariffs if the U.S. does the same.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that so that just is coming out, right, Rhino? Because overnight we saw Israel, Netanyahu announced that Israel would remove all tariffs. Now, Israel's not a huge trading partner with the U.S. in both directions, $20 billion or so, close to that, both in terms of exports and imports. But it is an interesting proxy, if you will, for what these moves may cost. So you're saying that just recently announced here that Canada is saying they're going to remove all tariffs?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything official, but I've seen a couple different people reporting on it.
Well, I can tell you, if that is the case, that would be huge, because you probably are also aware that the U.S. Senate is slated to vote on a bill that would actually reverse and override the Trump tariffs on Canada. It is expected that all Democrats will support that. And it's also expected that there are a couple of Republicans, I think Senator Rand Paul, Senator Susan Collins. The point is the Republicans can only lose one more defector, in which case they'd have to call in the vice president to vote to kill this bill. But if Canada does it unilaterally, that would be fantastic. And, I often thought maybe Mr. Trump should consider just picking the phone up and calling the Canadian Prime Minister and say, hey, look, let's work something out. Why don't we just call it a day and end all tariffs? Let's really implement true free trade between our countries. No tariffs. We won't charge you any. You won't charge us any. That is the goal. And I know that's the president's goal. And if we could get there, unbelievable what it could do for not only the domestic economy, but for the global economy. You would see an economic boost, the likes of which, as Mr. Trump likes to say, we have never seen by removing all tariffs. The problem is these other countries, they're kind of weak, and they rely on placing tariffs on stuff we produce in this country for revenues to power their country. They got to change their model. That's what needs to happen. And I surely hope that that will be the case. We're going to step aside for a break at Bill, Mississippi, at the Mississippi Trade Mart. That's where the Element Wealth Studios are today. And when we return, it's Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd. Stay with us.
Hey, this is Will.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays live from the Mississippi Trade Mart. We are here for Build Mississippi. We are pleased to welcome now Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd. She represents Lafayette and Panola counties, serves as the chair of the Senate Universities and Colleges Committee and vice chair of Senate Medicaid. Thanks for coming in there, Senator Boyd. Not far for you today.
Not far for me at all, and this is a great event. As Universities and College Chair, I love to see events like this going on across the state. I think it really gives our youth out there a real opportunity to get that hands-on competition experience in their CTE work. And so I love seeing this and all the kids and seem to be super excited and happy about what they're doing.
I agree. That's the best part of it is just to see them having fun.
They're having a great time with this. So I've seen this event a number of years. I've actually wandered in here. I used to be part of the Camper Caucus, and so they would set this event up every year, and we would come over here and watch it being done. And so this is just super exciting to see this going on in the state.
Yeah. wanted to have you to come by today and talk about Senate Bill 2452. I know this is something, obviously, you're heavily involved in and very passionate about. Tell us about this bill and where it stands right now, what your concerns are.
Well, just starting off by saying, I think I am a parent of a special needs child, but thankfully my husband and I have been married and still happily married for 30 years now. So this is not something that has personally impacted me, but I see it impacting families all across the state of Mississippi. Okay. Most people don't know that the studies suggest that divorce rates among families that have special needs kids are as high as 87%.
Wow.
It is. And because it is a difficult thing to do. It's difficult financially. It's difficult emotionally. And some people can't handle it. And it puts strains on marriages, and it really tears it apart. And what oftentimes, unfortunately, you see one parent bearing the responsibility of that special needs child completely when that happens. And you see it over and over again. And so basically about 44 other states make sure that when this is happening in this situation, that the child support extends beyond the age of majority. You simply because your child turns 21 doesn't mean that their disability goes away.
Sure.
It means that that disability continues. The Senate has passed this legislation, I think, through the Senate now 4 or 5 years. So we were very excited. The House took it up on the floor. That's the first time they did, but they put a reverse repealer in the bill.
Explain that to the
audience.
Okay,
so what it means is a reverse repealer has to go back to the other side. Basically, it's going to wind up in conference.
It passes the opposite side.
Yeah.
It gets repealed, which forces it to go back to the other side.
It forces you to go to conference.
To go to conference.
With the bill.
Yeah, to continue to work on it. Yeah.
And so Chairman Otis Anthony was really good. We actually, I think, came through with a great bill. And this is a bill that has been, it put a process in place. Our judges are clamoring for this across the state. Our chancellors are. Because they see this time and time again where this one family member then all of a sudden bears all the responsibility because they legally can't make that person contribute to that child once they've reached the age of 21. And there's this false presumption out here by the general public that you somehow get this government check immediately. And that's not the case. You may be able to get some benefits, and the judges have said, we'll take all that into consideration, like they do in 44 other states. They'll take those things into consideration, and they'll decide if child support is warranted or not. In some states across the country, they're having that non-custodial parent contribute to those special needs trusts. So after they're gone, that those children can be supported by that. But so we get it through the Senate yesterday with no votes, and then it goes to the House and it comes up, and your audience can listen to it. It's recorded in the House yesterday, and if you go to about I'll tell you where it falls off the rails is about hour 6:31, and basically, gentleman stands up and says that this bill gives him great problems because you're going to require somebody who maybe had a child, and this was an example he gave, when they're 50 years old, have to worry about taking care of a special needs kid. And I'm like, did they choose to father that kid? Because, if they fathered the child, they need to be
forced.
Forced. And it was some of the most offensive things I've heard, because there was no consideration given whatsoever to the disabled child, to the caregiver who's having to take care of it. It was though we were burdening people for having to be responsible for their kid. It was I mean, as a conservative, it was offensive to me in all kind of ways. And basically, it's up to the government. That was the basic message that was being sent. It's up to the government to take care of our children. And that offends me in all kind of levels. And I think the worst thing that I got frustrated with, and I love many of them to death, but I didn't hear a Republican colleague stand up and say, hey, we need to take care of our kids. And that frustrates me. So this session, there's a lot of convenient conservatism. And, and that's what's happened a lot of times with a lot of these bills that have happened down here. And I want people when they go home that I want your audience to go ask people, are you making people take care of their children? Are you making people be responsible for their kids? Are they paying their child support in there? Are they taking care of that disabled adult once they reach the age of majority? There's a reason why 44 states have done this. It's because that people need to take care of their kids. And, you get what you get in life. And just because it's inconvenience for you or it might make you have to work a couple of years longer, that child didn't ask to be born into this world. So you have to take care of it.
It's amazing that we need a law for this.
It is amazing that we need a law with this, and it's amazing the debate that came up and people voted to recommit a bill on this.
Wow.
And they can kind of say, they were trying to say maybe there's a problem with the law. We've got the steps in here. Judges have looked at this. People have looked at this. And we've put the procedures in here to make sure that nobody takes advantage of this. There's two medical professionals have to sign off on this. The judge has to hold a hearing on this. And the judge can take all the factors into account on this. And this is what chancellors do. They take all these things into considerations and they render judgment. And this is something that we have got to make sure that people are taking care of their children. And so this is just, I'm outraged by it a little bit. I'm outraged that we've sent this bill down there this many years and we're still having problems with this because this is not right in the state of Mississippi. And I'm frustrated with it in all kind of ways.
So where do you think overall, though, the Republican caucus in the House stands on this legislation?
Well, some of them I think we're concerned about, and we met those answers. Some of them were concerned about what's the process, what's the procedures, and would this, and I heard from Republicans say, well, what if this would eliminate a government subsidy for this? And the judge can take all of those factors into consideration. So the judge is able to put these procedures out and do this. So it was really disappointing day to see that happen. I was so excited that this could happen. Look, I have had mothers call me. I've had judges call me and say, y'all got to get this law passed. So, we have had, when you have the judicial community calling you saying, y'all got to take care of this. This is a problem with the law. We need to listen to them and take care of it. And when you hear a special needs mother, I had a woman call me a couple weeks ago, number of weeks ago now, she from the DeSoto County area, working multiple jobs because she's trying to stack away money because she knows she's not going to be here to take care of this kid long term.
Yeah.
And so the child's about to reach this age of majority, and the judge called her up and said, you got to get this, you got to call your people and make sure this law is changed because this guy's not going to pay past 21. So,
what happens in that situation?
So the mother, and people think like getting disability takes quite a process.
Sure.
But a government subsidy doesn't cover all the needs that this child has.
Are you talking about Social Security disability?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a small amount of money.
It's a small amount of money. So this caretaker will be solely responsible for this.
Unbelievable.
To me, it's shocking. I think our churches need to speak out about it. I think everybody needs to speak out about. You need to take care of your children here.
Sure.
So
it's amazing we have to say that.
Yes.
Honestly.
And this bill has just been 70 years.
Laws to force it, to require it. Oh my gosh. Okay, where's it going?
Well, it's dead for this year.
It's dead for this year.
It is dead for this year.
Because I looked it up. What a long history this bill has.
So it is dead for this year. So as people go home and your legislators come home, you need to ask them where they are in this and if they can help get it passed.
You got to go, or can you hang around?
I can hang around.
Okay. We've got Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd in the Element Wealth studio at the Mississippi Trade Mart for Build Mississippi. We're coming right back.
Everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are live today at the Mississippi Trade Mart for Build Mississippi. We're visiting with Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd. So it looks like that we'll have to wait till next year on this legislation.
We'll have to wait till next year. So,
okay.
But we're starting today.
All right. Well, good. So speaking of other legislation that is kind of caught in limbo, how about the budget? It looks like we're maybe headed to a special session there. What do you think?
I am not sure at this moment if we're what is going to happen with that, but at this moment it looks like we're headed into a special session to get the budget done.
Incredible.
So, yeah. So very frustrating. We kind of had a process that we had, lined out from the beginning of the thing. We had a calendar. We knew those dates of what we were going to be doing there, and we were in on Saturday, and just the Senate was in on Saturday, so those all died. So it's been super frustrating about that. So
well, the House contends, hey, we passed our bills, we sent them to you guys, and didn't need to be there over the weekend.
Yeah, there were no signed bills that were sent over to us.
Well, I heard that as well. So what does that mean then? Where's there a breakdown of the communication here?
Well, our appropriations chair stood on the floor and said we had no signed conference reports.
That'd be Senator Briggs-Hobson.
Yes, Senator Briggs-Hobson's. The House had said that they had sent over that, but he stood on the well of the Senate or the thing and said we had no signed conference reports. So you can't do anything at that point when there's no signed conference reports.
Okay, so opinion here, and just get your take on it. It feels like that this whole tax ordeal, the tax reform bill, the way it went down, has created an even bigger wedge between the two sides of the Capitol than we had at the beginning of the session. Is that what's going on here? Feels like it.
I think it's that, but I think it's other things too. I think also too, there is the tax situation with that, I think, left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths when you knew there was an error, and then you didn't say. And there's people that have argued, too, that it could be read the way that it was written. So, there's different opinions on that. But if you thought there was a problem, speak up. Because we have bills all the time that we have problems. Do you know what I'm saying? That we let the other side know that we have problems with. And so we try to make sure that we work those out. Because, it's both Republican supermajorities in both our chambers. We need to be working together on this. And I'm not happy with what I'm seeing within my party right now. We are fighting among about different things on this. But also, too, I'm going to say this. That's what should have happened with that. I think if the shoe had been on the other foot, I think the Senate would have definitely told the House, look, there's an issue here. There's a problem here. Let's work it out. But this game of gotcha does not serve the taxpayers of Mississippi well. And I feel like that was a game of gotcha. And so it's disappointing, and I don't think that's the representative of the majority of members in the Mississippi House of Representatives. But at this point, that is what leadership chose to do. So it is super frustrating with that. So I hope that we can do better. I hope that we can be better about this. But right now, when we had all planned to stay to work because that's what the calendar said. That's what we said we were going to do. And we had said last week that, this is what you do. You have conference weekend. We've had it for years and years, and everybody knows what conference weekend is. The rules didn't change on that. And the House decided to go home on that.
Well, the House maintains that, hey, we're able to get our work done without having to be at the Capitol throughout the weekend prior to sine die.
But the work wasn't done. That's it.
Okay.
The work wasn't done. The conference reports were not sent over signed. Okay. And that week, usually you start about Monday doing those. I'm not in appropriations, but usually about Monday, they're really working hard throughout the week to get those done.
Yeah.
And that simply wasn't the case, and the conference reports did not come over signed.
Okay.
So, but this is the deal, and I feel like there's probably more at play, wanting certain things in that call, that the Senate, and, the Senate, I think, wants to do appropriation bills and go home right now.
Okay.
And that's what's left on the calendar for that.
Well, the question is, can that get done with the remaining days? You shared with me earlier that we may have sort of a procedural scheduling problem there.
Well, there would have to be a suspension resolution at this point to do that, and that's what would have to happen at this point.
Is there an appetite for that?
I'm not sure there is, but it depends on what the suspension resolution would look like, I think, at this point. But I don't know that there's an appetite for that right now. I'm not going to speak for my colleagues right now.
Yeah, well, we had the Lieutenant Governor on yesterday, and he wasn't sure either, honestly. Yeah. He talked about it. He is concerned about the fact that we're running out of time and we don't have a budget.
Yeah.
I kind of wondered, I even shared this with him, Senators, maybe we ought to take up the budget early in the session. Now, I know that there's a lot of inputs to that process that you don't have clarified until, obviously, you've completed passing all the other legislation. That's an input. But maybe we ought to pass a framework or something, to work on and get that done early on. I can't think of anything more important than that, honestly.
Absolutely. And that has been batted around by a number of people for a number of years. I mean, we've talked about, most of the general bills go through one side.
Yeah.
And then people have talked about pausing all general bill discussion at that point, doing the budgets, and then going back and looking at the general bills on the other side. There's been a number of things proposed, and I think that absolutely that we should be looking at a different process.
Change the schedule around. Because every year's like this, you know that. We rush at the end to create a $7 billion budget.
Yes, and I think that would be fine, and that would give people really an opportunity to look at those budgets, see if there's an issue, and usually there's one issue or another that we have to come back and fix the next year. So give us more time to do that. So.
Someone on the C Spire text line said they'd like to see you run for lieutenant governor or even governor. So how about that? Don't laugh. You never know.
They're really kind.
Sounds like House Speaker White cares more about his fight with the lieutenant governor than the taxpayers of Mississippi. That's from DJ and Summit. So, I mean, we could certainly digest that, dissect that, all day long. And
look, I'm not here to throw stones.
Yeah, sure. I get it.
Here's my message. Okay. We're Republicans. We have super majorities. We need to get it together.
Okay, so I would submit to you, Senator, that is a pervasive sentiment from Mississippians. I think that's what they think.
I absolutely
agree.
And
they're frustrated when they see this contention and this inability to get stuff done.
I absolutely agree. So we need to work together and we need to get this done. And but there's procedures and there's rules, and if we don't like the rules, let's change the rules at the beginning. But let's don't throw grenades at the last minute.
Okay. Makes sense. So that's what we got going on there. It also looks like that legislation that would have infused more cash into the PERS program had legislation on both sides. That failed as well.
It did fail. Right now.
That's what it looks like.
That's right now what it looks like.
So we got a new tier, which provides some aid in stabilizing the program. Well, but Executive Director Higgins, of course, from the PERS system says, we got to have a lot more than that. That ain't going to do it.
Yes, but look, this is a huge piece of legislation. I know people aren't happy about that we've had to do a new tier, but this has been going on for years and years, and we just kept digging that hole. And we kept digging it, and we kept digging it, and we didn't do this. And I understand that people are not happy about this new tier, but many of the people that are complaining about the new tier are retirees that are in the old tier. If we're going to make sure that the retirement system that we have promised the individuals that are state employees, we had to develop a new tier, and we had to keep digging that hole because we can't afford the tier that perpetually that we had.
That's right. This is what I talked to the Lieutenant Governor about yesterday. We're just sort of stopping the bleeding here. We're not solving the problem.
We are.
We're just hopefully we're not digging the hole deeper. And your colleague Senator Daniel Sparks, who's worked incredibly hard on this deal. And I've had countless conversations with him offline. I bounce stuff off of him. He bounces off of me. I appreciate that exchange and relationship. But I want the people to know this guy's worked, and I know you all do, and I'm not trying to...
No. This is my desk mate. He has worked hours and hours.
And he absolutely grasps all the numbers and all the details and all the finance. But he is, he's referred to this as the biggest problem facing the state.
It is the biggest problem facing the state because people don't realize, and a lot of these people who call in or whatever, there's going to be liabilities on the books. It's going to affect people's ability to. So if you're a school system, DeSoto County, they did the other day. I think it's over $600 million of the liability on the books.
It's in their financial statement.
Exactly.
They get ready to borrow money.
Yeah. So you start trying to borrow money.
No doubt.
It has impacts way down the road.
No doubt.
So I mean, this is important though that we got this done this session.
I agree. I agree as well. And I think it was wise to insert it in the tax bill. I'm not sure we would have got it done through other means.
I think it was a good
plan. For another day.
Yes.
Senator Nicole Akins-Boyd has been our guest here on MidDays. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah. All right.
Folks, we're stepping aside for a break. Coming right back with Kimberly Jones, State Director of Post-Secondary Student Organizations.
When the clock strikes 12, we'll cool off and start rocking around the clock again. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock till broad daylight. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight.
It's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays, live from the Mississippi Trademark for Build Mississippi. We're pleased to welcome now Kimberly Jones, State Director of Post-Secondary Student Organizations. Kimberly, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us what you guys do, Post-Secondary Student Organizations. What's that all about?
Well, as you stated, I am the State Director of Mississippi Collegiate Post-Secondary Student Orgs. And what we do, we work with students in Skills USA from across all of the colleges in the state of Mississippi who are members of Skills USA. And those students are able to come in and compete in state competitions. And the students who win at state are then able to go on to compete in the national competitions. Today at the Trademark Building, we have students engaged in 7 different trades and manufacturing related competitions, from welding, fabrication, industrial motor control, carpentry, and electrical construction. And that's kind of what we do with the students, and work with those students to develop leadership skills and help close that middle skills gap by preparing those students to have those soft skills that are missing in the workforce.
I see. So how do you go about training them for the soft skills? Do you have like a structured curriculum for that?
It is a combination of what goes on in the classroom. The student orgs connect and correlate with what goes on with the teaching and learning in the classroom. So they're learning based on the curriculums for those specific programs, and through their involvement in Skills USA, they're engaged in those different programs in the competitions, where it's connecting with the learning in the classroom, and they're getting that hands-on experience based on what they are doing in the back today, competing in different building competitions and carpentry competitions. So through that process, we also have the students who can be leadership roles in the student organization. So through Skills USA, they can be a president of the organization. Through that process, we allow the students to help run different activities that we have, like our state conferences, doing our awards programs. So we work with them in honing those leadership skills.
Gotcha. What do the employers say when they talk about the workforce that's presented to them, the skills gap that they need that you guys fill?
One thing that I've learned through my work with student orgs and with national certifications is that the employers say that employees entering the workforce are lacking those soft skills. Mm-hmm. So they have to retrain those students when they're coming in to help develop those soft skills. One thing I've learned is that there is a gap that exists in Mississippi with the workforce, with students having those skills to enter in the middle level workforce. Through Skills USA, we help those students try to develop those skills through the connection again, through the classroom, being involved in the organization. We try to make certain that those students are able to hone in on those skills and those soft skills that they are lacking, so that they will be able to develop those before trying to enter the workforce.
Give us some examples of what you mean by soft skills.
Soft skills, being able to just speak in public. Having integrity is one of the main things with soft skills. Being able to just come in and present themselves, being able to speak in front of some of those soft skills like that are some of the things that the employees are really saying that's lacking.
Interesting. So Or the employers, do they provide feedback to you and say, yeah, this is working, keep doing what you're doing?
One of the things, the way I connect with employers is through Skills USA, where we bring in the judges, where the students are competing. That's my connection with the business and industry partners. We pull them in to judge for those students. And at that point, they provide feedback based on the competition that the students are engaged in. Beyond that, I don't have much connection with the business sector.
I see. And what about working with the educational institutions and helping them sort of shore up their curriculums to teach these skills?
Now, the curriculum component is held on a different aspect at the Mississippi Community College Board. We have a curriculum division. That division works with the colleges in developing the curriculum. They being their business partners, but that's a whole different aspect of what I do in student orgs.
Oh, okay. I see. How long have you been in this role, Kimberly?
I've been in this position since 2022.
Okay.
There was a transition. Student organizations for the state of Mississippi used to be under the Mississippi Department of Education. When the state plan was rewritten, we split, and the collegiate side came over to the Mississippi Community College Board. The Mississippi Department of Education kept the secondary component of it. So in 2022, I served as a state director for Mississippi Post-Secondary Skills.
I see. How many students are engaged in this program on an annual basis? Do you have those figures by any chance?
The numbers have dropped from last year, and from my understanding, the numbers are dropping across the board for secondary and post-secondary. Right now, we have a total of 198 members in Post-Secondary Skills USA.
198?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Seems like we need more.
We do. Because our role is to help get these students prepared to enter the workforce. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there's a middle skills gap that exists in Mississippi, and part of our role is to help fill that gap.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. There's no doubt. And as you're well aware, these soft skills can carry a person far.
Yes, sir, a long way, yes.
Yeah, as much, if not more, than just technical skills can.
Yes, because it takes those soft skills, as they say, those are the things that students are generally missing when they come into the workforce that employers are having to retrain and retool students on.
I understand. Kimberly, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Kimberly Jones, State Director of Post-Secondary Student Organizations, has been our guest. Once again, we're down at the Mississippi Trade Mart. The Element Wealth Studio has been relocated for Build Mississippi today. We're stepping aside for a break now. It's Fox News and SuperTalk News coming your way. In the next hour, we've got Senator David Blunt. We'll dig into the Democratic recommendations of how to address the PERS situation. Coming right back. Stay with us.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is hour 3, the afternoon portion of MidDays, now live from the Element Wealth Studio, relocated in the lobby of the Mississippi Trade Mart. We're here for Build Mississippi on this
Hump Day.
We're headed up to Sally K. Winters in West Point, Mississippi tomorrow, and that'll be an all-day ordeal. All the shows will be up there. Looking forward to that event. Great organization, does great work for the state of Mississippi, and especially the Golden Triangle area in particular. So Greg Newton observes it's exactly the same way in Washington, based on our discussion with Senator Boyd, which is talking about the frustration that she feels, I think many legislators feel, and certainly many Mississippians feel, certainly from the Republican side, that we got Republican supermajorities in both chambers in the state capitol. We've got an all-Republican statewide leadership, including, of course, the other entity involved in lawmaking, that being the governor. But yet we have a lot of contention and a lot of disagreement and lack of consensus on so many issues. No doubt about that. And it does feel like Ben from Madison said something as well. He said, I agree with you, Gerard. It certainly feels like tensions have only worsened since the tax reform bill error. I think that's largely true, Ben. I really do feel like that there's a little bit of retribution being exacted, perhaps by both sides here. One of the potential positive things that could come out of this thing, Rhino talking about the tax reform ordeal specifically, is that a lot of these member pet projects that are always magically inserted into the final waning moments of the appropriations process. Looks like that might be a little bit taller order this year. I'm hearing that from members of the legislature that they're going to put the clamp down on that. So a lot of these so-called pet projects that always get inserted at the end, looks like they might be destined for the old File 13 this particular year when they hammer out the final budget. We shall see. But that looks like for sure where we're headed. I did have a question again, and I certainly realized that this would be a review and folks aren't able to tune in every day, but there was a question about what this Tier 5 would look like, this new tier that is going to be created as a result of the tax reform bill, what that looks like in terms of the public employees retirement system. And it's a bit different than the Tier 4 program that we have. This was, on the C Spire text line on the 601. It's different than the Tier 4 program currently in place in that it would create a hybrid program, part defined benefit program, which is consistent with the current Tier 4 and all the other tiers and PERS, and it would also create, as part of that, a defined contribution plan. So members would essentially, new members that is, would join in this Tier 5 when they became employed, and they would participate in two different types of plans as opposed to just a single PERS plan, which is an all-defined benefit. And all that really means, once again, is that your retirement benefits are really not based on the amount of money in your account. There really is no account for you. There's just a number of years that you've accumulated, and that's it. That's how they figure out the formula to figure out what your benefits are based on your years of service and your salary. That's it. And those benefits continue as long as you are alive. Whereas in a defined contribution plan, those end when you've withdrawn all the money. So the benefits are lower, but the amount going into the program's the same, and that, of course, from an actuarial perspective, would reduce the overall liability. And that's what's going into effect. Although it starts far short of resolving the problem. And that's the most important aspect of it. Still got a lot more to do. Thomas in Greenwood says, will a Tier 5 detractor like Senator Blunt get to set the narrative on what Tier 5 does like others get to do? I don't know what you mean by that, Thomas. This Tier 5 has been signed into law by the governor. So that is a done deal. Jerry in Waynesboro, please explain this trend without cheating going on, the Wisconsin Amendment voter ID requirement. I was a little surprised by that. That was a referendum on the ballot yesterday as part of electing someone to the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, and that is to require voter ID as part of the voting process. It passed overwhelmingly, 62.7% to 37.3%. I think there is some interest even at the federal level to require voter ID, at least in federal elections in every state, and just make that federal law. Already we have an executive order recently signed by the president that would require proof of citizenship to register and to vote. We had that discussion with Secretary of State Michael Watson yesterday.
Neither of those results are really all that surprising because they're within 1 or 2 points each of what was polling before the polls opened.
Oh, totally agree. I think, though, you'd have to admit that generally speaking, there is some objection from the Democrat Party against voter ID, and you know, of course, with these results that lots of Democrats voted for it. That's what I'm referring to when I say it's a bit surprising. But might you see similar measures on the ballot in other states? Certainly possible. Matthew H. in Grenada says, what about the school choice bill? Workforce development seems critical, and every opportunity to help our students have the best choices possible would seem to make sense to me. Yeah, and so you know, Matthew, all those measures, again, died in this legislative session, as they have in all prior legislative sessions. There's just no consensus, even among Republicans, on what any form of school choice should look like over and above what we presently have, which is minimal at best. The bill I thought had a chance to get through was one that came out of the House that was authored by Representative Jansen Owen, which would have implemented portability, just would allow a student in a public school to transfer to another public school, provided the transferee public school has capacity. They would have some discretion over that. But the main key is that the transferor school would not be able to block such a transfer. Presently in Mississippi, you can transfer from a public school to another, but you've got to get permission from both sides. And what that bill would have done is precluded the home school from blocking that transfer. So none of that went through. Other states have, in fact, passed similar legislation. So, Gerard, with all due respect, please try to refrain from misusing the term Democratic when referring to the Democrat Party. You see that interchanged a lot, by the way. Democrat Party, Democratic Party, and even among big-time journalists. I tend to stick with Democrat Party, honestly, is usually the way I term it. What are you saying here, Thomas? Detractors get to lie and leave out details without challenge. I don't know what you're talking about. They get to act like it will harm current employees and retirees. Oh, I see. Yeah, this new tier really doesn't have an effect whatsoever on existing active members of PERS that are building up their service to eventually retire, nor does it affect those who are retired and receiving benefits. The bigger issue there is that the program has a $26 billion unfunded liability, and that needs to be addressed. And Executive Director Higgins has said as much, that, hey, this is great, guys, we support this Tier 5, but you got to do more than that. Looks like that's not going to happen in this particular session. We'll cover that with Senator Blunt in the next segment. We should also pass on to, you probably saw the news, that Val Kilmer has passed away. He was, of course, the star that played Jim Morrison, also played a role in Top Gun, and sad to see. Not really sure what was going on there. A little surprised at that.
He's been fighting... I think
cancer,
he had a fight with throat cancer.
2014, but fully recovered.
Yeah, he recovered from that, but then I want to say he had a couple other private health issues that him and his family never made public, that they worked around in order for him to make an appearance in the Top Gun Maverick movie.
Right.
At the behest of Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise was adamant that Iceman needed to be in the new Top Gun movie, and they did everything they could to make Val Kilmer as comfortable as possible so he would be able to be a part of it, even with failing health.
I got you. Yeah, that his handle, of course, in the famous Top Gun movie. He was Iceman. Tom Cruise, of course, played the role of Maverick. Something else I want to pass on is there is at least one senator who's pretty concerned about the Trump tariffs. He said it will do irreparable damage to farmers. They're all one crop away from bankruptcy. That's North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis. So a little dissension among the Republicans there. We're stepping aside for a break at Bill, Mississippi. Coming right back in the Trademark with Senator David Blunt.
Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
back, everyone. It's Middays. We're live at the Mississippi Trade Mart for the Build Mississippi event. We've got Senator David Blunt now joining us. Senator, you, of course, chair the Senate Gaming Committee, vice chair of Senate Education Committee. You reached out to me the other day. You heard us talking about the PERS program, something we've talked about a lot on the show.
Yep.
And you reached out and said you wanted to come in and give a perspective, your perspective from the Democrat angle. Tell us about that.
Sure. I'm one of 4 legislators who serve in an advisory capacity on the Public Employees Retirement System Board, along with Senator Sparks, Representative Reed, and Representative Oliver. We don't get to vote, but we go to all the meetings, get briefed by the actuaries and all the rest of it. And I know there's a lot of concern about what Tier 5 would do. There are things that I want to emphasize that people don't need to be worried about, and there are things I think that people do need to be worried about, and I thought I would just try to answer those questions for your audience.
Okay. Well, we've described Tier 5 quite a bit on the program, and just at a very high level, the benefits aren't as generous as certainly from a defined benefit plan perspective as the current Tier 4 is. But the member doesn't contribute as much to that part of the program. However, the state continues to contribute the same amount, which goes to PERS. So it's more going in and less coming out, essentially.
That's accurate. The first thing I would say is if you are retired, or if you are an existing employee who is covered by PERS, you're going to be okay. The state or your employer, whether it be a city, county, school district, has a contractual obligation to you, and your retirement is guaranteed by the state by contract. So don't be worried if you hear about a PERS bill and you're retired or you're an active member in PERS that someone's going to change your benefits. Your benefits are not going to change, and we all agree on that. We also all agree that we need a new tier of benefits for people who have not been hired yet. Now, I disagree with the Republican position, the position that is now the law, having been signed into law by the governor, on what that new tier ought to look like, but we all agree that we ought to have a new tier. But stepping back for just a minute, the 2 issues that have dominated this session, there's a fundamental logical disconnect in my mind. And one of them is we have the state's in the best financial shape it's ever been in, and we need to eliminate the income tax, which is 1/3 of the state budget, more than $2 billion a year, because we're doing so great to have all this money. Number 2, we have a giant unfunded liability of PERS of $26 billion. Where are we going to find the money to fix this? We've got to do something to the retirement system. Well, the retirement system needs money. Whether we have a Tier 5 or not, whatever that Tier 5 may look like, and again, there's disagreements on what that Tier 5 ought to look like, everybody knows, and the board has said for years and years and years, the system needs money to pay the obligations that we owe. And whether you're in the system or whether you're not in the system, as a taxpayer, you owe this money. And what we should have done, and I actually had an amendment on the Senate floor to do this, the amendment did not pass, is we shouldn't cut taxes until we fix the retirement system. Now, that's not what happened. The governor has signed House Bill 1, which does both these things at once, to eliminate the income tax over a period of years, much faster than some people anticipated, and to provide reduced, worse benefits for people who have not been hired yet. Again, we needed Tier 5. It didn't have to be this system. And the people who are going to be hurt the most by this new Tier 5 are first responders, law enforcement, and teachers who are going to have the same retirement. And this is what this is the state's interest in all this, whether you're in the system or not, is teachers and law enforcement and firefighters and first responders don't get paid enough money. And what happens, so what keeps them on the job after they've been working for 6 or 8 or 10 years is a strong retirement system. That's what keeps them on the job. And if they have this new Tier 5, which most of the money is a 401k style system with no guaranteed benefits, despite unless what you make in the market, and a smaller defined benefit that has no cost of living adjustment at all, that person has no reason to stay in that job. That person should leave. That person could do probably better elsewhere, and we need people in these jobs. We need people working for police departments, sheriff's offices, and in the classroom. And the retirement system, a strong retirement system with a COLA, retains people who have started there, worked there for a while, think they can make more money somewhere else, but they stay because we have a strong retirement system, and that's why I think the Tier 5 that we've passed is a bad proposal.
Have you heard some feedback from public sector employees that participate in PERS about Tier 5 and how that might impact their ability to hire new talent?
I've heard from law enforcement and firefighters groups from across the Metro Jackson area where I live, but this affects everybody. I've talked to people in law enforcement at the city and state and county level. I've talked to people who are in the fire department. And these are people, if you're my age and you've been in the system for more than a decade or so, you could work for 25 years and draw a good retirement with a COLA. If you were hired last year, you can work for 30 years and draw a good retirement with a COLA. If you start today with the police department or the sheriff's office, you have to work until you're 62. Say you're 22 years old and you start to work at the police office or the sheriff's office. Under this new plan, you are going to have to work until you're age 62, in other words, 40 years, or in order to draw your retirement, or 30 years to draw a retirement that doesn't even have a COLA.
Well, 35 years at any age.
35 at any age. That's correct. And then you're going to have a smaller defined benefit program with no cost of living adjustment, and then you will have been responsible for your investments and how well they do, and you will be responsible for what you do with that account when you retire. And if your car breaks down or you have a medical emergency or something, that pot of money, whatever it is, based on how successful you've been in handling your investment, is going to be the majority of your retirement to last you the rest of your life, and good luck.
So also, the bill does not mandate that employers contribute to the defined contribution side of the plan. That is discretionary by the employer. So the employee still contributes 9%, 4% to the benefit, 5% to the contribution plan. The state contributes all 19.9% to the PERS program. None goes to their defined contribution plan. So they don't get any sort of match the way a typical 401k plan would work, where an employer provides some financial contribution as well.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So when you retire under this new Tier 5, you are going to retire with less money coming in, and because there is no COLA, that gap between what current retirees make and what you will make if you're a Tier 5 retiree is going to continue to get wider and wider and wider because there's no COLA, and you've just got to be responsible for your own investments.
What do you think we should do with the PERS program with a $26 billion unfunded liability?
I think we should do two things. One, our Tier 5, and I've got the numbers. I'll be happy to share them with you and with your audience. We should have said we're going to keep everything the same for Tier 5 as it is right now, in terms of years, in terms of contributions, in terms of cost.
Well, why do we need a new tier?
Well, let me finish.
Okay.
And instead of a 3% COLA, you're going to get a 1% COLA.
Okay.
And
compounded?
Yes.
1% compounded?
Yes.
So it's not tied to inflation in any way?
No, it's not.
It's really not a cost of living adjustment?
It is a fixed 1%, and based on the actuarial report, and I'm happy to share this with you and your listeners. Okay. Based on the actuarial report provided by the PERS board to the legislature, in 30 years, that plan, a 1% COLA, would be funded at 63.5%. In 30 years, the plan that is now the law, the new Tier 5, would be funded at 61%.
30 years.
In 30 years. In 40 years, the hybrid plan would be better off.
I've seen that all the various different recommended scenarios, everything from suspending the COLA for a while, for a different number of years.
That's not a good idea.
Yeah.
So we can get into details, but two things that I would have done is I would have had a defined benefit program with a COLA of 1%, and I would set up, and the House leadership has been for this, and I think they're right, a statutory way to pump money into the system on an annual basis that's not subject to the annual appropriations process, but sends a stream of money to the retirement system every year.
So you would have supported what the House had in their original tax reform bill to divert the first $100 million of lottery proceeds?
I don't know if it's lottery. I don't know. It could have been the income tax, but we're not going to have that anymore. But they need a permanent revenue stream coming to them every year, and there are different options to do that.
Because, as you know, Executive Director Higgins has said that this Tier 5 unto itself is not sufficient.
It's not, and that's why we needed an income tax. But I guess that horse is out of the barn.
So you believe we talk about it on the other side of the break. I know you got to get back to the Capitol, but we should be able to get you there.
Sure.
Yeah, we got Senator David Blunt. We're down here at the Mississippi Trade Mart for Build Mississippi. Stay with us.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit. You ain't no friend of mine.
I'm ready. Ready here. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Mississippi Trade Mart for Build Mississippi. We're visiting with Senator David Blunt. So, Senator, continue, please, on what you think we should have done. I know you said that eliminating the income tax makes it even harder for the state to infuse cash.
Yes, that's right. I think that's obvious. Yes,
the PERS program. So, and we had two bills, one I think in each chamber this year, that would have in fact appropriated significant money, like we did last year, $110 million.
Yeah, we did that one time.
Both of those failed.
Yeah, and that's disappointing. I mean, I do agree that we need to have a statutory funding mechanism for PERS. There are different options out there to do that, but it matters. You can't be subject to the whims of the annual appropriations process when you know you have this money. It's like any other debt that you owe, and this debt is owed by the taxpayers of the state. The quicker you attack that debt and pay it down, the better off you'll be. And we need to do that, and we could have done that more quickly with more money faster if we had an income tax. But again, that's water under the bridge. But we need to set up a mechanism to pump money annually into the PERS system, because for the long run, it's going to be good for all the taxpayers of the state that owe this money.
So, obviously, you oppose the tax reform legislation. I assume you voted against the original Senate bill.
Yes.
As well, not the one that ultimately got inserted into HB1 and passed by the governor, but the original Senate bill. You voted against that.
I voted against both of them. I don't think eliminating the income tax is a good idea. I think there's three things going on, and we all know that first, that the state budget has been propped up with an unprecedented amount of federal money during COVID and during the Biden administration. That's over. We have more uncertainty than ever in Washington about how federal funds are going to flow to the state, to the Medicaid program, to the Department of Education, to the Department of Health. There's a lot of uncertainty right now about what the federal government is going to do, and is the federal government going to continue to send money like they have to support these state programs? Federal money is about 40% of the overall state budget, and there are a lot of questions that everybody, Republicans and Democrats, don't know the answer to right now. So this was a one-time windfall. We've got unprecedented uncertainty, and we need a diversified mix of income, sales tax, income tax, the other revenue the state generates. So I thought it was a bad idea, but again, that's the law.
Yeah. So what about mobile sports betting, Senator? That could have generated at least a little dab of revenue for the state.
Well, let me tell you how much revenue that would be, because I get
estimated, of course.
The estimated amount that I see on billboards and on Facebook ads is $20 million.
Yep.
That amount is 0.000000001% of the amount of revenue generated by the income tax. That's 7 zeros to the right of the decimal point, and then 1. The income tax generates more than $2 billion a year. The mobile sports betting, as proponents indicate, would generate $20 million a year. That is not a relevant issue within the context of a tax cut. Now, there are people who want to engage in mobile sports betting, and the only reason they can't do it is because the government won't let them, and that's a legitimate discussion to have. And last year in particular, we looked at it very hard. But it is not at all relevant in the context of the amount of revenue that it would generate compared to the amount of revenue that people were so excited to eliminate.
Do you feel like the estimates are accurate?
The number I gave you is the number that the proponents give. I assume that is based on taxing it the same way we tax revenue sports betting that happens in a casino right now. I don't know. I do think it's a complicated question because, as we've discussed on the show before, there are folks in this business that think it will hurt their business and impact jobs. There are other casino operators that disagree with that and think that will help their business. So the number I quote you is just the number that's being given by the proponents, and that may be in the ballpark. I don't think it's.
Well, the reason I asked that question is because North Carolina had a very conservative estimate as well, but they generated $729 million last year of revenue, the first year that they implemented mobile sports betting.
Yeah. So
it's a bigger state than Mississippi.
It is a bigger state. I don't know what the tax rate is up there. I mean, I think the proponents are assuming that the tax rate would be the same. It doesn't have to be the same, but again, within the context of having just eliminated the income tax, it is beyond insignificant in terms of revenue. Don't eliminate $2 billion worth of revenue and come tell me that we need $20 million from sports betting. The reason to consider it, and we have considered it, is a lot of people want to do this, and it's available in other states. And I think, quite frankly, that if Mississippi did not have a healthy tourism-based casino industry, we'd have mobile sports betting in Mississippi right now. But we do, and those folks have been here for more than 30 years. It's an important part of our economy, and so I listen.
Do you believe this would hurt them?
I think it could. There's not a consensus on that. There are people who disagree with that. There's some people who think in that business who think it'd be helpful.
Yeah.
I will tell you, and I went to a conference just in December about this. There are people who believe, and this is being pushed in other states, that it is a means towards what's called iGaming. There are 7 states in the country right now that allow you to play poker on your phone, to do blackjack on your phone, play all the different table games that you can play in a casino on your phone. That's in 7 states right now, and those states see it as an easy way to get tax money. I think that's a terrible idea. I think it's bad for the culture of Mississippi, and that would be devastating to our casino businesses. Now, that's not in the bill that passed the House, and I'm not suggesting that it is, but I have heard from other states that started with mobile, and once people start doing stuff on their phone, they want to do more stuff on their phone.
That's prohibited in the lottery bill as well, by the way.
And so, again, I'm not suggesting that was in the House bill, but I do know that is an increasing topic of conversation in the states around the country, and what it means to me is it's sort of a way to shift the funding of government from basic things like the income tax to lottery and liquor and gambling and all these other things as a means to fund government, and I think that's wrong-headed. I think we had right now maybe one of, if not the smallest income taxes in the country for states that do have income tax. So I think that was part of our revenue mix that we needed to keep.
Did your committee actually vote on this measure, or did it ever come up for a vote in the committee?
Mobile sports betting did not come up for a vote. We passed.
You have the power to dispense of that, right, as the committee chairman?
I do, and obviously I talk to other folks in the Senate, but I'm not the dictator of the committee, and I talk to other people. But, yes, the chairman would have to bring that bill up.
Okay.
We passed a lot of good legislation this year. We passed Tideland's legislation for the casinos on the Gulf Coast. That was supported by every single senator from the Gulf Coast, all of whom are Republicans. We passed legislation requested by the Gaming Commission to crack down on illegal Internet gaming, which is currently a misdemeanor. It would have been tough penalties, again, requested by the Commission to deal with illegal online gaming. We passed legislation pushed by Senator Michelle and Lieutenant Governor Hosemann to allow for gaming winnings to be garnished for people who owe child support. All these things were popular. All these things were unanimously popular, supported by Republican legislators, and they all died in the House because the House won't consider any legislation as it relates to gaming, even if supported by every Republican in the state Senate, and I think most Republicans in the House, until we have sports betting on your phone. So we agree on 4 out of the 5 issues, but right now we can't make progress on any of them because we do have a disagreement about sports betting.
Would you support increasing the income tax?
No, I've not suggested. The only tax increase that I've advocated since I've been in the legislature is raising taxes on cigarettes. Okay. So that was not necessary. Democrats have not filed bills to increase income taxes, but we have opposed these cuts because we think the state budget is coming for reckoning in 2 or 3 years because of the economic cycles, particularly following COVID, and because of what we may see coming out of Washington.
What are you hearing about from the Division of Medicaid as far as their future financial needs? I'm hearing that it could be significant.
Well, it seems a little chaotic to me. What's going on in Washington, but I know that if the state match for the existing Medicaid program, I'm not talking about expansion now.
Right.
And I was asked on the floor by a Republican senator if I was pushing expansion now that we've seen all this stuff happen out of Washington, and I think we need to pause on that for right now. But if the state match on the existing revenue for Medicaid, the existing program is reduced by 1%, the state's got to come up with $80 million. If it's reduced by 10%, the state's got to come up with $800 million.
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen, but I'd be concerned about that because either what will happen is the state's going to have to make up that money, or you're going to have to cut a lot of services that benefit a lot of people. The same is true with the Department of Education.
Well, I'm hearing, I guess, just anecdotally, that even without any changes at the federal level, that the Division of Medicaid is suggesting that more money is needed just to meet our state's obligation in the match.
I think that's true, and when you eliminate a third of the state budget, that's going to be very difficult to meet.
Gotcha. Senator David Blunt has been our guest here on Middays. We're down at the Mississippi Trademark for Build Mississippi. Thanks for coming in, Senator.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. We're coming right back, folks, with the final segment of Middays. It's Mike Shirley, Program Coordinator, Construction Trades at Meridian Community College.
Well, we ran a couple. It's so awesome!
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
And you're tuned into Middays. We're live at the Mississippi Trademark for Build Mississippi. Rhino, I think I heard the bell sound. It's kind of like a job site. And all these young students exited the building for lunch. And I'm sure they'll be filing back in here momentarily. It's really cool to be here and see these young people that are doing something productive and industrious and learning and preparing themselves to be contributors to society. We need more of that, man. It's incredible. What about raising sales taxes to help with PERS, says Willie and Duffy. Well, sure, absolutely, Willie. That is one way to do it. You could raise the sales taxes and dedicate that increase as a steady stream of revenue to the PERS program. But that is not very popular, I can tell you. You're talking about going to the people in Mississippi and say, hey, look, we got to raise your sales taxes so you can fund retirement benefits for people who work in government. It's just not popular. And in fact, one of the reasons the final bill that passed for tax reform does not have the original sales tax increase found in HB1, the original House bill that would have eliminated the income tax, is because Senator Harkins has shared with us on the program and me in private that the votes do not exist in the Mississippi State Senate to increase the general sales tax. And in fact, the public have en masse reached out to members of the Senate after the House bill passed and said, do not pass that bill if it's got a sales tax increase in it. And of course many people object to the excise tax on fuel increase as well. So sure, any additional revenue that could be brought into the state that the state would see fit to dedicate to the PERS program would help shore up the unfunded liability, help address the unfunded liability. But again, that's on the backs of the taxpayers, and it's just contentious. It's not popular. Thanks for all the great information today. Appreciate that on the C Spire text line. Thank you for bringing this up to him. Gerard is awesome. I appreciate that. I mean, it was just a question that Reinhold and I've talked about on the show before, that we know that the senator opposes mobile sports betting, and you have to respect him. He doesn't shy away from that. He didn't tiptoe around it. He didn't dance around it. He was straightforward. He was direct. He said, I oppose this.
He tiptoed around whether or not being the chair is the reason it didn't come up.
He did, and that's why I asked him that question, because I think it's important. And, that's something you and I have talked about quite a bit.
He also intimated that the state takes in $2 trillion in income tax.
He said trillion?
That's what his math says. If it's 7 zeros and a 1,
you're right.
Yeah,
I was thinking that. You're exactly right. He's got too many in there. He went too far to the right of the decimal point. And while he was reading out all those zeros, I was trying to keep up with that and saying, wait a second, I think we're getting too far out there. So thank you for doing the math for us on that. Yeah. It really doesn't matter. To me, the revenue aspect of that is kind of irrelevant. What's relevant to me is that people want to do this. And people are doing it now, and we're getting zero benefit from it. And you know this. There are folks that are driving their vehicles up along the state line, right, and connecting in so they can place their mobile sports betting, do their mobile sports betting in the other states, the adjacent states that allow it. So I think it's more a matter of that. He really didn't offer any concrete reason and rationale for killing that legislation, but it is important for the people to know. It's something you and I have talked about many times. Committee chairpersons have enormous power, and they can dispense of legislation that is drafted and assigned to their committee, and often it is assigned on that basis by the Speaker of the House in the House side, the Lieutenant Governor on the Senate side. Yeah, I'm going to assign this to this committee because I know it ain't going anywhere, and I don't want it to go anywhere. And I just believe that maybe it ought to be a requirement that all legislation ought to come up for a committee vote, and that every committee member ought to be recorded with respect to that vote, their vote on that measure. And that would really be, I think, a more accurate reflection of the sentiment of members, because a lot of legislation would get out of committee. I think that bill would have got out of committee and to the floor. I'm not saying it would have passed on the floor, but I have talked to a lot of senators who have said privately, yeah, I'd really like to vote in support of mobile sports betting. So I don't know. I have an issue with the way that part of our process works.
You just can't be snarky about, well, we don't have income tax, but I'm against getting other revenue.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I don't really see that as a legitimate reason not to eliminate the income tax. I see what he's saying. He's worried about possibly blowing a hole in the state budget. I mean, I share those concerns. That's always a concern. It's always a possibility. And there's no doubt that any sort of downturn in the economy could have an impact, as it always does, on all states, in the federal government as well, because you've just got less economic activity. Incomes tend to stabilize. People lose their jobs in a recession, all the above. Corporate profits go down, and that generates less revenue at all levels of government. That's a concern. But that still really doesn't address the question, in my view, and the issue, in my view. Today at 4 o'clock, though, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock our time, the President will announce to the country and the world his tariff plans. We're going to be tuned into that and analyzing it again tomorrow at Sally Kate Winters in West Point, Mississippi. Thanks for joining us today. We're at Build Mississippi, the Trade Mart. Until tomorrow, stay safe, and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.